webinar. Today's topic is why cloud networking is exactly what you need. My name is Susan Haynes, and I am the Director of Customer and Partner Marketing with Comport. So welcome. Let me introduce our two speakers, James Robertson and Dustin Ray. James serves in Aruba's Office of the CTO, a small group of visionary industry experts who have led complex organizations and been recognized for their deep technical leadership and business excellence. Dustin is a senior network architect for Comport and provides Comport customers with designs, implementations, and consulting. He succeeds in fixing existing network issues and designing for challenging physical layouts to deliver seamless, secure connections for users in a range of settings, from hospitals to law firms, service companies, to manufacturing plants. Now for a quick run through our agenda. Dustin is up first. He's going to give us some quick facts and figures on Comport, and then James will take over and speak about our main subject, cloud networking. Then we will go over the free trial that we're offering to all the participants today. And afterwards, a Q&A. There is a question box on your menu, so feel free to put those questions in throughout the time, and then we'll address those questions at that time. And lastly, we will give away 2 pairs of Apple AirPods to 2 lucky winners. So that's it. I guess, Dustin, you are up.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome everyone. Like Susan said, my name is Dustin Ray. I'm a senior network architect with Comport. I am just one person in our larger organization supporting our networking and securities practice. And before we begin, I want to introduce everyone really briefly to who Comport is, in case you're not familiar with us, maybe new to working with us, may just want to learn a little bit more. So there are a couple of things during this new normal as the pandemic is set in. We've all transitioned to either mostly working from home or working from home 24/7. If that means working with your kids in the house, working with animals, pets, doing video chats and conference calls all day, every day, we understand. And we are an IT solutions provider that really focuses on that human experience. So while we talk on the phone, while we meet via video chat, we want to make sure that you understand that we maintain this human connection with you as we build our partnerships between our organizations. We have a lot of experience across the board. We have former CTOs and administrators from several different verticals that are out there on our staff doing both services work, also doing design and architecture as well. So we can provide a lot of firsthand knowledge of some of the issues you may be facing. And leading into that, we also drive everything based on solutions. We never see anything as a one-off. We want to build a practice that is really focused on maintaining a partnership and really driving forward your business values and making sure that we can uphold your company's goals and also work with you to figure out what your long-term plans are. And that drives to the final point of we're really focused on staying aligned with you and engaged. Everyone from the owner and president of our organization down to every sales rep and technical individual is here to help. And we're all willing to hop on the phone, get on a meeting, and make sure that we're solving any issues that you have in a very timely and efficient manner, but also make sure that we make you understand and help work with your organization to learn that Comport cares. And as we go further into this talk about cloud networking, there are 3 key questions that I'd really like everyone to sort of think on and just puzzle over while James does his talk. The first being, what is your cloud strategy? You may not have one. You may be looking at getting into the cloud. This could be a public cloud, private cloud. It could be your own cloud on-prem. You may be looking at a variety of service providers. But what is your cloud strategy? What workloads do you want to move? What networking appliances, what work from home strategies have you implemented in the cloud? The second being, are you prepared for rapid network expansion? As we saw back in March of this year, everyone had to transition to this new process of working from home a majority or all the time. And that caused a lot of chaos in the beginning, and not everyone was prepared the same way, and some people were extremely prepared. And with that came rapid network expansion in areas that nobody really thought of before, which is maintaining VPN connectivity or supporting a remote VDI infrastructure, or being able to spin up workloads and services really fast in a public cloud to deliver what you need to maintain your business continuity. And the third being, do you support zero-touch provisioning? And this could be for a branch site, a remote site, or even home offices. As we all know, it's very difficult to have that interaction where you send a person on site anymore and you can really get hands-on with the equipment, especially if it's talking about a remote site far away from the main office or far away from the majority of your resources. So the ability to spin up everything without anybody on site having to do anything other than plug a device in is really key, I think, moving forward. And I think a lot of people are thinking about this and kind of reorganizing what they're doing. And while you think about these questions, I want you to understand that we have seen this, we have worked with this, we have worked with organizations across the country to support this, and we've got your back. We have a great partnership with companies and organizations like HPE and HPE Aruba. We are very, very tightly integrated between our teams and their teams to really make sure that any issue that you have with the individual software bug, you need to expand your wireless networking capabilities, you need a site survey on one of your locations, either a predictive survey or maybe something a little bit more in depth to really fix an issue that's critical for your organization. We can do that. We have a very large team here at Comport that can support multitudes of issues and services. And the way we work with HPE Aruba is we are lockstep together. Every time that there is something that comes up and it is related to an existing deployment, a new deployment, or just something you're wanting to do a trial run on, we are working very heavily together with both our teams and theirs, and we can provide the service level that you need. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to James Robertson, and thanks everyone for joining.
And thank you, Dustin. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you. So I'm just going to restate exactly what Dustin said in a different way. Aruba has a very simple mantra that we live by, and that's customer first, customer last. And just like Dustin said earlier, it truly is that personification of we've got your back, right? We bring the right people in partnership with organizations like Comport to the table in order to get the job done. We make it as simple as possible from a process standpoint to do the things that you need to do to be successful in your business. And then beyond that, we don't build technology for technology's sake, right? Unlike some organizations. We build technology because we know it's going to make a difference, move the needle, change something that is going to empower our customers to do better things and move on to great things. And so, you know, we literally live, breathe, and die customer first, customer last inside of Aruba. And it's always great to partner up with organizations like Comport, who have that exact same feeling about how they go to market with their customers. So we love this partnership. Just a quick background on me, just in case you haven't run across me before. I'm part of the office of the CTO, and I've been building networks for in excess of 30 years now across my career. And I spent 20 plus years working in the media and entertainment industry, building networks and technology that was involved in everything from dealing with elections and covering election cycles, to covering news events around the globe, to natural disasters, to just dealing with back office networking, right? And so I've seen it all. I've also been heavily involved in mergers and acquisitions over my career, putting together some of the biggest organizations, and in some cases taking them back apart again. And so I'm a pragmatic individual. I come at everything I do from very much a hands-on standpoint, walked in your shoes standpoint. And I think to me that adds some value and hopefully some credibility to what I'm about to say to you over the next 20 or 30 minutes. So if there's anything I want you to understand from what I'm about to talk to you about, it's really these kind of 5 key things. I'm going to show you, hopefully today, how you can optimize operations. You know, how potentially you can harness the power of the cloud for greatness, how you can add security to everything, how you can simplify your underlying infrastructure, make it easy to consume, and ultimately how you can put control back in your network infrastructure and gain control over something that has become incredibly complicated. You know, I'm a business guy. I'm a technologist, but also, you know, spent plenty of time in the C-suite. So I understand that from a technical standpoint, we have requirements, but from a business standpoint, pretty much when you start to talk at the C-level, you're going to be talking about people, process, and technology. And how business transformation involves all three of those, so that you enable the right framework to exist inside your organization, so that people are doing what needs to be done and they're optimized, they're not overutilized and they're not underutilized, that you're driving everything with a level of control and governance, and of course that you're deploying the right technology stack to meet the needs of the business. And that really kind of marries up exactly where Comport and Aruba come at this problem. But the issue we have with networking compared to many other parts of the stack when you start to talk about cloud, in a lot of cases, it's just not well understood, right? Not only is it physically complicated, it can be a spaghetti mess like the picture shows there, but you also have kind of an incumbent community of engineers and potentially vendors in some cases that over the history of this skill set, going back 30 plus years in some cases, have solved problems by adding more complexity to the problem, right? And so I look at it and I say, we've really created, and I was a network engineer for a lot of years, so I understand, I was guilty of this myself. We've really created this, what I would call a dark art around networking, right? It's a bit Harry Potter-esque in some cases, in that some of it is not understood by a lot of people. And so you get these inner circle of a handful of individuals in your organizations who understand how this plumbing works. And that obviously adds issues to all kinds of different things, whether it be just how you solve business process and function needs, how you even begin to start transforming this stuff. You know, and we've bought into technology that in some cases is incredibly vendor specific, because we've tried to solve business or technology problems by latching onto a vendor who has a solution. And often these protocols and capabilities aren't open, right? They're unique to a particular vendor, which means they can't interoperate. They can't be used across different technology. And it creates this stranglehold, this control, you know, chain almost around your neck in some cases, that ties you to a particular way of doing things. And honestly, we failed to break that chain, right? The network engineer is still very reliant on the command line and its relationship with the network device. And so it's allowed that network engineer to do his trade very successfully, you know, in his professional career. But what it hasn't done is not answered the underpinnings that we need for transformation. So as other parts of the IT stack have moved into the cloud and have seen the benefits of the cloud, we've been unable to maximize it. We've been unable to get there from a network standpoint. It's just been easier to leave it alone and not embrace it. But I think it's time for a revolution. And for many of us, this revolution has been forced on us, and we can call it COVID shock, if you want to call it COVID shock. It's the issue of a pandemic and financial impacts all coming together very quickly that has changed the picture for good. And it's requiring us to adapt and transform across almost every front of our business model and our technology stack very quickly, just like Dustin said early on, in order to meet the company's needs for this year and beyond, right? And more than anything, you know, we need to enable our workforce appropriately now. We need to be able to control costs. In some cases, we need to be able to retool and look towards a future and either remain profitable or at least remain viable while we work our way through this situation. And it's affected every industry. I work across hundreds of industries every year, everything from very large sports teams to schools to healthcare to hospitality to industrial sites and just carpeted floor space for, you know, kind of carpeted businesses. And it's the same message I'm getting from every one of them. No industry has been immune to re-examining what this means to them because of the disruption they've experienced. And like Dustin said, we've created this kind of work from home army, right? All of a sudden in this shock, we've moved a whole bunch of people out of the office environment and into their home. And that's mean that we've had to take a different approach to how things are deployed. And for organizations that have already been on a cloud journey and embraced moving some of their systems and services to the cloud, it's been very fruitful because they had that inherent flexibility already in the cloud. But the issues being that, that our network and our management plane of our network has not budged, right? It's still constrained by the physicality of buildings, of data centers. So if you really kind of reflect on it, if an organization is willing to run their critical revenue and productivity applications in the cloud because they have to, why can't networking operate from the cloud? You know, as organizations continue to examine themselves and look at what this new workplace is going to look like in a post-COVID world, their needs are obviously going to change. Their physical footprint in some cases is going to change. And that means the needs and desires for the core plumbing of our buildings, our network technologies and topologies is also going to have to change. So the new network connectivity plan needs to provide kind of consistency of services, whether it be at the home or the office or any place in between, right? It has to demand a level of security. We have extended what was the moat around our buildings to the home at this point and beyond, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So we have fragmented the edge of the network. And ultimately, if we're going to gain control of this in any way, shape, or form, it has to be orchestrated from a management plane that can operate beyond the scope of the building or data center. So it's really become an imperative this year to really examine what cloud networking can bring to the organization. So, you know, when you look at moving the management plane of your network operation just starts to make sense. It has to be kind of location agnostic. Moving it to the cloud just makes a lot of sense. It provides the flexibility and agility that your business and its operations are needing now and in the future. Right? It allows network management to occur from anywhere, right? And obviously utilize resources that can be, you know, fragmented around the globe, literally, whether that be a network engineer that works for you at home, an outsourced partner, or even offered as a service. And the true ability to be agile and flexible to support the needs of this transformed business, you know, has to happen regardless of where those operations are, on-prem, off-prem, cloud first, wherever, it doesn't matter. And if we get this right, there's always a cost component. There's always a capability to either maintain costs or reduce costs. And, you know, I've never seen an organization say, you know, do more with more in my years. It's always been, can you do more with the same or can you do more with less? And so that demands a level of efficiency that has to occur in the networking infrastructure and all its underlying aspects as we kind of move forward. And so we have to change the game. And really that starts with changing the way we look at the network. Historically, we've looked at the network in terms of a topology. We need to now look at the network in terms of a policy, giving each device, each person, each location, its set of controls, its governance, its compliance aspects, and documenting that for the network to implement. It doesn't matter anymore, and it's really kind of a failing technology. Again, back to that legacy of networks, that we drive things through protocols and route maps, right? Or by, you know, crazy, you know, constructs that we've deployed in our network. It's all about driving the network with governance and control. And it starts inherently with the posture of zero trust security by default. If you don't trust anything on the infrastructure and you apply policy to it, then everything has to adhere to that policy. It's going to fall in line from start. Not, oh, well, I've got to make an exception now. Oh, I've got to adjust a route map because I've got to bring in this IoT service onto the network. You set the policy up front. The device or service that's coming onto the infrastructure adheres to that policy through its life, and that policy follows it wherever it goes on the infrastructure. So if we're going to adopt this new way of thinking around cloud-based networking, we have an opportunity to obviously remove these legacy silos that we've created, these problems inherent in the network underpinnings that are causing us so much pain and suffering and stopping us from really moving business transformation forward. We have an ability to uncomplicate management. You know, I've seen many management scenarios over the years, and obviously the worst case is when you start to add manager of managers on top of it, because you can't get the data you want out of the underlying management system, that you have to abstract it to another layer or have multiple tools looking at it and then abstract it in a way so you can make some sense about it. But if you're doing that, then if your management is complicated, security becomes an issue because you're possibly missing those needles in a haystack. And beyond that, if we're going to drive forward with any kind of transformation, it's got to adapt and be ready for whatever economic headwinds are thrown at us in 2021 and beyond, right? We know that the new normal is here to stay, if that's what you want to call it. But what's next? I think every month of this year, we've seen something different come at us. You know, in terms of strange things that you never thought was going to happen in 2020 when we started this year. And so we need to be ready to adapt. Our businesses need to be ready to adapt to that. So it starts by building infrastructure based on a business need and based on strategy, and not based on the underpinnings of a vendor strategy, right? This is, you know, I'm talking a little bit about Aruba, but at the heart of it, this is an open network problem, right? If we create a Lego block-like structure of the best of breed components that drive security, networking, wireless, whatever it might be, and orchestrate it with a framework that makes sense, we get exactly what the businesses need. And by moving that framework into the cloud and being in a cloud-ready posture, it opens up so many underlying opportunities. So, you know, as I talked about this today, maybe you're not ready, you know, to push all the chips in and go all in cloud networking. But one of the beauties of what Aruba's been doing over the last half a dozen years or so is we know that, right? Again, we don't build technology for technology's sake. We build technology because it solves a problem. So we look at it and say the hardware that you deploy needs to be the same, regardless of your underpinning needs. So today you might be completely on-prem from a management standpoint. Tomorrow you might be hybrid, or hopefully eventually you might be completely cloud ready. And Aruba and Comport can help you to make that position a reality for you and hopefully get you to a point of success with this cloud-based networking. But the power of the cloud is not realized by just moving management around, right? It's what becomes possible when that management is moved. You get to unleash capabilities that you can't necessarily afford or can't scale when you have all of your eggs on-prem. You unleash the power of massive back-end computing capabilities that can bring AI and machine learning capabilities at scale to your infrastructure, right? That they allow you to understand, because they can dive into the data lake of information they have at their disposal of your infrastructure, what's going on and how that needs to be reacted to. You can easily extend or add external operational constructs, right, and integrations. It could be as simple as I want to automate my trouble ticket issues and automatically have the network report to ServiceNow. It can also be that you get insights, you get understanding of what really is going on in the network, the performance of the networks. You get to understand maybe some of those needles in a haystack that engineers spend so much time to dog down and kill, right? And they get missed because obviously network engineers are overworked and they're jumping from one fire to another fire. So all of these things are possible when you get to the cloud. So it allows an operator to focus on the things that matter. That being business transformation, things the business is really asking them to do, and not just do the firefights that occur each day. It keeps the human, in some cases, out of the situation until the human is needed to do something critical. That is the power of AI and ML. Let the network do what it's good at. Let the network run based on the policy that you've given it. And because you're in the cloud, it's not only your network. it becomes a crowd of networks, all under management, that can be mined, right? The data in these crowded clouds can be redacted. It's not that we're sharing intimate secrets of your underpinnings of your infrastructure, but these insights, these problems, these zero-day issues that pop up, right, can help generate capabilities that power the entire management plane. All of the understanding of all of the organizations using the cloud in this crowd gives you the power of crowd-based networks, right, that help deliver enhanced capabilities. It gives you the network insights that have been seen as problems at a global scale. Like I said, the zero-day issues, the gotchas, the bugs that may be popping up, and allows actions to be created in advance to inform the operator to make sure that network remains viable and visible and working. And because we drive the network through policy, right? It's not topology anymore, it's policy. That means that we can look at it in terms of zero trust, like I said earlier. And that makes the business secure by default. Zero trust basically means I don't trust anything on the network. The network has to set the governance and controls around everything that comes on the network. And that means that when the bad guys turn up, and they will, we know they will, they're always knocking on the doors, they're always poking and prodding to try and understand, what they could get at, what data they could exfiltrate, whatever it might be, right? Or because you know exactly what devices are on the infrastructure, if someone puts something new on the infrastructure, an IoT device that you didn't know about, it's going to get flagged, it's going to get documented, and it's going to get reported out to the operator. Hey, this new thing has come on the network. And because you have the power of the cloud and the crowd, it could be, hey, this new security camera has been deployed by our security team, our physical security team on the infrastructure. I can tell that it's an access model, blah, blah, blah. Are you okay with me putting that in the security camera swim lane? And that becomes all of that back-end work that a network engineer would have had to have done to understand the device, understand what it's doing, where it's going. All of that happens automatically, and the operator just says, yes, I agree with what you found, Mr. Cloud AI. Go ahead and put it in the right swim lane and secure that part of the network. And that also means that when things go out of compliance, let's say that a device, an endpoint is compromised in some way. The network knows that it was talking to these systems under a normal basis, and now all of a sudden it's trying to talk out to this third-party service in the cloud, or it's trying to exfiltrate a lot of data all of a sudden to China, right? All of these factors can be seen and reported back to the network, through the network to the operator, right? And that means that as these things happen, right, you get to immediately stop the bad things from happening because your compliance rules have set these flags. And so when these flags are triggered, right, you can create automated workflows that either generate tickets, page people, whatever it might be, so that the human isn't digging at the data, right, making them more efficient. This data lake of knowledge and telemetry that's being built around your infrastructure is producing and providing intrinsic value to the operations. And so as the bad guys and performance problems become less of a headache, it's much easier to react to and solve the things that are complicated, to do those business transformations, to change different systems and services that make sense. Because it's almost like using the power of AI and this kind of collective brain capability that your network engineer is grown x-fold, right? They have an ability to handle more things because they're not having to dig and look in the weeds to try and find stuff. Stuff is being presented to them, they're able to react to it, they're able to solve those problems, they're able to move on and keep the business secure, keep the business humming, and basically enable the business wherever they are, right? Whether it be at home or in the office or anywhere in between. All right, so I know this is going to sound a lot like science fiction, right? And so, I would kind of cue the infomercial music at this point. It slices, it dices, it folds your washing, and it helps with the homework. But, really it's not science fiction, it's science fact. And at Aruba, we've spent the last 6 years or more now really focusing on what the edge of the network really needs to do. And it starts with defining what the edge is. It's really that place where the human and the technology come together for the first time. And we need to make it work for all of us and not against us. And historically, we've not done a good job with that. We're all used to our iPhone or Android experience now and the seamless integration it provides. Why can't we do that at scale in the network? It needs to be a good feeling. It needs to have good onboarding and simple onboarding. And it obviously needs to undo the complexity of the experience that we've seen in the past. That's why we have been on this journey to look at networks differently, right? We look at it obviously from the core tenets of connect and protect, right? We need to connect things together. We need to secure things in the appropriate way. But then we need to analyze, and beyond that, we need to provide action. We need to provide actionable output from the analysis that we do on this data so that the operator can become more efficient and run the network appropriately. And this is something that we call the Aruba Edge Services Platform, or ESP for short. And the meaning is not lost on us that ESP has another meaning in society, the idea of a sixth sense, a predictive capability. And we are trying to apply that to networking, that help provide the network to create the desired experience for the user. And that experience has to be with the network operator, the engineer who's building the network. It has to obviously be with the end user who's consuming things on the network, but it also needs to help the business through process governance and compliance and the insights that it provides back to those business leaders. I look at it as layers of carpet, right? If you think about how your floor is made up, it starts with floorboards, right? It's the strong underpinning of everything is your strong wooden floorboards, okay? And if that's not there, if this infrastructure layer is not there in a way that makes sense for your wired, wireless, your WAN environment, your extension to cellular, or anything else that you want to throw on the infrastructure, everything else on top of it is just going to fall through. Doesn't make any sense. And then beyond that, it goes into policy and trust. How do we create that underlay under the carpet, right, that smooths all the bumps out, that keeps things consistent as I transition from room to room around the house? And then beyond that, it's how I present it. When I take my shoes off, I want to walk on warm, fluffy carpet, right? I don't want to feel the nails or the pops or the transitions. I want the experience to be seamless and comforting to me at every time. And to that point, it means how we bring things onto the network from a zero trust standpoint, how we orchestrate the network in its operations, how we provide the analysis back to the network engineers so they know what's going on and manage appropriately, but then also services like location capabilities, where we can provide tracking and tracing capabilities from Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, for example, so that more understanding about the physical environment can be gleaned just from the network telemetry that's produced. And so you hear a lot today about software-defined capabilities, but we believe that SD truly means something different. It means self-driving, right? The network should control itself through the policy and react accordingly to inform the issue of the issues that occur, right? And if you get to that point where it's self-driving, all great things happen. So for now, it's just self-reporting. But because we have this underpinning of AI and ML, there exists a future, maybe a couple of years from now, where you get to self-healing. And we're already experimenting with that in a lab. So not only are you informing the network engineer of issues, but you're saying, here's the remediation you need to do. Here's the tweaks you need to do. Some of that exists today, but we will get to a point where you basically say, I agree with that, off you go. Network, go fix yourself. And that is when we really see all of this coming together over the next couple of years. And that's why it's such an imperative to get on this journey towards cloud-based networking in the very near future, so that as this capability matures, you'll be ready to consume it, you'll be ready to maximize it and understand, its ramifications for your business. And so this is how people, how the process and technology all come together kind of in an optimized way to power this new way of looking at networks and to drive these new experiences that ultimately need to move a business forward. And we call it, like I said, Aruba ESP. AIOps, all of this artificial intelligence goodness on top of a unified infrastructure that is best of breed, and then applying security at the core from the start. And this all sounds really great, but like I said, I used to be a customer of Aruba. I was actually Aruba's first customer. And so I've had a long history with Aruba over 20-something years. And so when I was tasked before I left industry and moved over to Aruba a couple of years ago with this project, America's biggest real estate project ever, a place called Hudson Yards in Manhattan, I had to look at this in a very different way. We were building a city within a city. And I famously said at a board meeting when we kicked the project off, the space is going to be this amazing experience. The technology and the underpinnings of that technology, as in the network, needs to be also. So as I went on a journey with my partners and Aruba in order to deploy for this campus, I learned a lot of things. And it's only improved since I deployed this a couple of years ago. But just to give you an idea of what I was dealing with, in the one large tower alone, we had 1.5 million square feet of space that had to have corner-to-corner Wi-Fi coverage. We assumed that every user had at least 5 devices on their person, and probably more. We scaled for the idea that IoT would become prevalent everywhere, right? That we would have so much data coming from the network and being mined by groups using the network that we had to be able to make sure it all connected, it was all appropriate, it was all secured. It had to be multi-tenant. We had multiple companies, even with my own company, that had to be kept separate from each other. So we had to have policy and governance that created multi-tenancy while using the same hardware fabric. And because we were leaning into a wireless world, we wanted to reduce the end user wires, the amount of wires on a desk plugged in, and we reduced it by over 80%. So we secured this infrastructure and orchestrated it completely by policy, and like I said, not by topology. And so we realized some very simple savings. First of all, over $1 million a year in operating savings, okay, right off the top. And if I dug, I could probably find more. We saved $8 million alone in the one building just in cabling and installation because we leaned into a wireless first mode of operation. We optimized our operations from end to end, and I didn't eliminate, I reduced from 11 network engineers in our Manhattan area to 3 to run this campus. And that's really where this power comes to life, the ability to harness the power of cloud and true automation to really drive business change. And I know you're going to say, wow, this is really good. Maybe it does slice and dice, like the infomercial says. But I can't do this. I can't consume it. I've got this legacy infrastructure in place. How would I ever begin to start to deploy policy on top of that? Well, at Aruba, we've made that simple. We've created a construct called dynamic segmentation, which allows our devices to exist on top of an existing network or backbone. That backbone could even be the internet. So, for example, the access point that you see in the top left corner is actually something that we call our remote access point. And we've seen a massive uptick in our customers using remote access points to get their employees onto their secured fabric policy network from home simply by shipping them a unconfigured device and having the network, when it calls home, basically provision that device according to policy, allowing them to create a connectivity that is seamless between what they have in their office wireless environment or wired environment and their now home kind of temporary/permanent working environment. And that zero-touch provisioning capability is across all of the Aruba portfolio. So literally, you define the policy for the device, you ship the device, maybe even sight unseen, to the end user. They plug it in, power it up, it goes through its magic, and all of a sudden they're on your network infrastructure. And we can do that in an existing building. We can do it, like I said, remotely over the internet. Anything is possible to kind of get on this journey. And it's all powered through something that we call Aruba Central, which is that central management framework in the cloud, providing the AI and ML capability and providing those insights back, as well as just the normal everyday management needs of a network, provisioning devices, provisioning users, and the likes. And so that's how we make it simple from an infrastructure standpoint. And with a partner like Comport, they can make it even easier for you to adopt. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dustin.
Thanks, James. And as James was saying, we at Comport, we work very closely with HPE Aruba, but we also do everything with the mindset of we can provide this as a service if it makes sense for your organization. These new cloud initiatives are complicated, and it usually takes time for your teams to really get their heads around and understand and actually be able to actively engage and expand and troubleshoot some of these new technologies that are coming out. So instead of having to learn all of that day one during the installation process, we can provide it as a service. We can handle the installation for you. And this could be the wireless access points. This could be the cloud management or automation tools. This could be your policy engine that's dynamically segmenting your network. It could be the edge switches, your core switches, your top of rack switches. It can even be your firewalls or SD-WAN appliances. And this scales up as much or as low down as you really need us to go. We are very agile in that regard. We have an entire organization called Comport Secure that is focused on really delivering this as a service message and capability. And it doesn't matter if it's on your premises, on one of our data centers, or even in the public cloud, be it Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services. We can provide that same level of service in any way that you can think of. And so as James has gone through and talked about a lot of these technologies, know that that's always an option. And we do have your back. We really do care about you and your organizations. And we don't want these new technologies to drive a wedge in the teams or even slow down your progress as a company. We want to maintain your velocity moving forward. And we want to also be able to provide you what you need when you need it as a consumable resource, just like everything else is out there. And with that said, do we have any questions? Is there anything anybody is curious about, wants to know more?
Hi, it's Susan. So I'm looking at the questions, and I don't see any questions right now. Why don't we move on to the offer, and I'll keep looking in the question box.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. So as James and I and Susan as well have repeatedly said, we are a very tightly grounded partner with HPE Aruba. And one thing I want to leave everyone with today is that we can offer kind of a free kick the tires 90-day trial of this Aruba Central platform that we've talked about. This is no commitment. This does not require you to do anything. If you need a switch, an access point to test with this, we are happy to coordinate and help provide that. But this is a free 90-day trial. This is something that you can do in your spare time. This is something that I think a lot of people would be able to just have an environment where they can play around with. 90 days doesn't seem like a long time, but being able to test out some of these functionalities like AIOps or sort of playing around with the idea of edge as a service or edge services platform as a whole. It's a really, really good way to test this out, like I said, with no commitments and something that we can help provide you at no cost. And if you have any interest in this, you want to learn more, you want to talk more with our sales and technical teams about this, you are definitely more than welcome to reach out to the email address on the screen now, info@comport.com. We have a number of people that constantly monitor that for any new incoming emails, or even better, if you know who your Comport sales rep is or your Aruba sales rep is, contact them and tell them you want to work with Comport on this 90-day Aruba Central trial, and we'll happily set that up for you.
Great. Okay, so now to wrap it up, I have everybody's name who is on the webinar right now, a name in a hat, and I'm going to choose 2 winners. Let's see, the first one is, let's see, Melanie Marcotte from Precinct. Melanie, you are one of our winners. And the second winner is, let's see, Jennifer Hilgen from National Distributor System. So someone from Comport will be reaching out to you to get your shipping information, to get them over to you. Again, I don't see any questions in the question box. So I think we can wrap it up unless Jim or Dustin have any final remarks.
I think I'd just like to say on behalf of Aruba, thank you for the time today to spend with you, and hopefully this was valuable and kind of opened your eyes to some of the potential possibilities going forward. I think, obviously partnering up with Comport and bringing these capabilities to life is going to be key going forward. So we thank you for the time today. And again, if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to Comport or to your Aruba partners.
Okay, thank you so
Absolutely.
much, everybody.
Thanks, James, and thanks everyone for joining.
Have a good day.